Alrighty. A little late getting on here tonight. Double shift again. I swear they're doing it to me on purpose at this point. But I wanted to kind of play around with an idea. So I have here. What do we got? Come on. We can do this. It's called the Solo Adventurer's Toolbox. Everything you need to play the world's greatest role-playing game without a DM. So this is supposed to be a guide to playing games by yourself. Now, by yourself is maybe a misnomer for what I want to do with it. I'm thinking what I would like to do is use it to play test my designs for changes to the game. So I think it would be fun. I'm just roughing out the idea. Say I want to try out playing through with the non-Vancian wizard structure that I built for game playing. If I just made a character and created a game to play with that character, to test that character out as we went, I can see that being sort of fun to do. And then switch over, try the sorcerer, and then bard and druid and ranger and warlock and cleric and arcane trickster and eldritch knight. Is that what it's called? Something like that. Anyway, I feel like being able to do those types of playthroughs where I could solo playthrough test them would be fun for me. It might be interesting and educational for people watching. But also, I would love to see if I can figure out a way to include audience participation. So if I did them live, the chat over to the side, it would be something like, okay, so we're at this point of the adventure. Do you want to roll the dice on the side, or should I make the choice here? And also do a few things like what action should we take next? So I think that would be kind of fun to do, and it would be especially kind of cool if I could figure out a way to do charity benefit games like that. I don't know. I got to figure some of that out, but I'm looking at this guide here for playing games. With these pages, you will find a wealth of resources to help you enjoy detailed, immersive solo adventures. There are random encounter tables, quest and encounter generators, urban and wilderness encounter tables, merchant tables, instructions about travel, downtime activities, and much more. Using this supplement and a simple question and answer mechanic, you can enjoy hours of DM-less play using the 5th edition system. So, I mean, I'm kind of curious to see how it turns out. How to use this book. Spend a few minutes now to skim through the whole book, taking in the basics of each chapter. You'll probably discover that some of the chapters and systems will be suited to your style of play, and in other instances, you will have your own systems that you prefer to use instead. Solo adventuring with D&D. When the red basic box was issued, and I do actually have a digital copy of some of that. The red basic box was issued back in the early 80s. I vividly remember playing through the little dungeon that served as the intro to the player handbook. I was in my sister's apartment flat with Thompson Twins and Billy Idol playing in the background and making maps in my school math book. Okay, that's a great nostalgia trip there. Dungeons and Dragons is all about group play. Sometimes. And I still continue. The thing, I'm kind of curious to see what the methodology. Getting started. Freeform solo play. If you want to simply start your character's story and see where events take them, then your best approach is probably to pick a location within your setting and place them there. Start interacting with the local elements, accessing information from whatever setting or campaign resource you have on hand, or pick a destination for them to travel to. Send them on their way and see what happens. Getting started. Quest-based solo. If you want to just rip straight into the action without any mucking around, then go to Chapter 7, Quest Generator, and create a quest for your character to hear about. Perhaps they hear it in a tavern, or perhaps an NPC gives it to them. There are tables in the chapter for generating quests and a table for determining how you hear about it. So it looks like it's mainly like a lot of dice rolling involved. It's just like random generation. Since you are playing the part of the DM and player, you will need to exercise your creativity in giving your PCs a surprising and interesting experience. Fortunately, there are many tools included herein to help you achieve the purpose. How to look below for a summary of each chapter and its content. Skill checks. It is expected that as you play, you will make skill checks as you see appropriate for your PCs. For this purpose, and if no other option is apparent, you can use the DC's given guide. Okay, so wait, what? Very easy. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. It's a chart that says very easy, easy, moderate, hard, very hard, nearly impossible. I sort of recognize some of that from back in my days of market research. Would you? How likely are you to see this movie if it comes out in the theaters? Are you very likely, somewhat likely, neither likely nor unlikely, somewhat unlikely, and very unlikely to see this movie, or not inclined to see it at all? And overview of the book structure. Chapter 2, the next chapter, will examine the question-answer mechanic that I have created for use with resources in this book. This simple system allows you to gain answers to questions, much in the same way as a system like Mythic. I'm not familiar with that one. You may prefer to use the Mythic system or another similar system in place of this. Question-answer mechanic is indispensable for freeform solo adventure. The one I've created for this supplement is a simplified version of those offered elsewhere. Mythic. So let's do a little research, shall we? This system allows you to gain answers to questions much in the same way as systems like Mythic. So Mythic question and answer mechanism. No. Mythic answer. Maybe it helps if you spell the words right. No, Mythic RPG. Create dynamic role-playing adventures without preparation for use as a standalone game or as a supplement for other systems. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Mythic. Create a dynamic role-playing adventure without preparation for use as a standalone game or as a supplement for other systems. Most role-playing games operate under the principle that there are players and there are game masters. The game master prepares all the details of an adventure and then runs the players through that adventure. This usually requires a great deal of preparation on the part of the GM and the handling of many details. Mythic is different in that it requires no preparation from the GM. Mythic adventures are meant to be played off the cuff with perhaps a few minutes of brainstorming to come up with initial setup. Mythic can also be played entirely without a GM. The same mechanics in Mythic that allow a GM to run an adventure without preparation also allow a group of players to do without the GM. Okay. So let's see what this looks like in the store. It's not bad. It's not a huge... Most role-playing games... Okay, yeah, we already did that. Mythic is different and then it requires no preparation. Okay, without the GM. In a Mythic adventure, the GM or player sans GM can start an evening entertainment with about 5 minutes of preparation. As the adventure unfolds, the GM is just as surprised by the twists and turns as the players are. There are various ways in which Mythic can be used. No GM, multiple players. No GM, one player. One GM and any number of players. Mythic standalone. Mythic can be played as a complete role-playing game. Same logic-based tools that... Okay, Mythic with other RPGs. Mythic's main strength is the ability to generate dynamic unfolding adventures on the fly. Mythic can replace the GM even if you're playing another role-playing game and not using Mythic rules as the core rules for your campaign. Mythic takes the place of the GM, but the main RPG's rules still handle character creation, combat, task resolution, and everything else. Questions that players would normally ask the GM are now asked to Mythic instead. How do the reviews go? Discussion. Okay, as a newbie to paper and pen role-playing games, I thought I'd try solo. I like the idea of this setup, but from hours of reading and highlighting the book and trying to set up a sequence to start play, I'm stuck. To me, a flowchart with page references would help. Has anyone done a diagram to simplify this book for a newcomer? Okay. So, let's see. Just echoing the other reviews would say that if you're only interested in the solo system, then it's better to buy the Mythic GM emulator instead and save yourself the $2. All right, so okay. That's the trouble with reviews. You have people in there whose biggest complaint is the formatting is terrible. Like, dude, can you read a paragraph and see a chart? Yes, no. If you can, get over the design aspect. Okay, so It's hard to say. Let's see if we can pull up some information on another site. Where is my page for that? I've got too many tabs open. Let's try. So see if the search might take a little minute here, but I do think it would be fun to just do some playtesting trials of some of my changes, and even just to see if I can break them. Just break them out live. Just mess them up. And then say, like, okay, how can I make this more robust? Yeah. I don't know that this is either Mythic or this book. There we go. No. It's called Mythic, right? Mythic role-playing. Okay, so... Oh, golly. My shoulders are killing me. I need to work on my posture when I'm at work and now. It's not doing me good. No, that's Pathfinder. Oh, I think we found... There we go. Maybe we got it? Mythic. Flexible generics. Okay. Okay. So, Mythic role-playing. Dynamic role-playing is what they call it. Okay. And what's the GM emulator? And variations. All right, so there are 3 of them. The dynamic role-playing GM emulator, which was what was recommended by one of the reviewers. So Mythic dynamic role-playing. Create dynamic role-playing adventures without preparation. For use as a standalone game or as a supplement for other systems. Okay, so where's your table of contents? Mythic adventures, character creation, the fate chart, task resolution, combat, randomness, the adventure, game master emulation, world creation. This might just be fun to just play with. Okay, so notes about, so Mythic Adventures. No GM, 1 player. The right stuff. Finally, Myth can be used as a writing tool. Yeah, that's part of what I'd probably use it for sometimes anyway, just as a way to prompt me into doing something. Logic comes in, where interpretation comes in, improvisation. Importance of logic and interpretation. So, details and rank. A detail is just what it sounds like, an important aspect of the character or object. For instance, intuition would be detail for a character. Skill and abilities, also details. For an object like a computer, a detail may be its complexity, a password protection. Every detail has a corresponding rank that describes the potency of that detail. Ranks are expressed in common language. For instance, a character's strength might be exceptional, and he might be above average with a gun. Mythic uses its own set of adjectives to describe ranks, which are very subjective. To clarify, gameplay. Players may wish to stick to this list. Okay. So the following list shows the standard Mythic ranks, although any language can be used that is similar. So minuscule 2+, minuscule, weak, low, below average, average, above average, high, exceptional, incredible, awesome, superhuman, superhuman +2. Okay, ranks relative to what? Okay, character creation, freeform characters. This is the best option when you have a good idea of who it is you want to roleplay, but you don't want or need to record every detail right now. Okay, point-based characters. Attributes: strength, agility, reflex, IQ, intuition, willpower, toughness. Okay, so wait. Do they do pretty much just rename each of the categories? So strength is strength in D&D. Dexterity would be agility here. Reflex. Oh, okay, so reflex is something different. IQ would be intelligence. Intuition, that might be different. Willpower would be usually wisdom. Toughness would be constitution. They don't have a charisma score. Okay, abilities. Strengths and weaknesses. Coming up with modifier. Okay, special rules. So it looks like they really just kind of, they built in a mechanism for solo or GM-less play. And then on top of that, they built a rudimentary, fairly simplified system, it looks like. Now, I don't want to, diminish what they've done, because I'm sure it took a lot of time and a lot of play testing and figuring out. It probably took them a few years to get this all worked out. But I think overall, I don't imagine there are going to be large numbers of people who play the base game. They're just using this to adjust other game systems. I think this could be fun to play with, doing some very simple storytelling. The fate chart. Fate chart is the heart of Mythic. Everything that happens in Mythic Adventure is resolved by forming a yes or no question. The logic of that question is then applied to the fate chart. Okay, this sounds complicated, which gives a percentage probability of a yes answer. The result is no, exceptionally yes, exceptionally no. The players then interpret the results to fit logically into the adventure. Questions. All action is moved along in Mythic by asking yes/no questions. Are the monsters in the room? Does my card jump the chasm? Can I successfully cast this spell? Does my sword kill the troll? Did I persuade the cop to let me go? Normally, such questions would be asked to a game master who is keeping track of such details. In Mythic Adventure, the GM can be replaced. The rules of Mythic are designed to answer all questions put to it, and in a logical manner, as long as they are phrased as a yes or no. Now, see, one of the things I'm kind of curious about with this is, and I'm playing it around in the back of my head, is if this works well as a yes/no randomness event kind of predictive algorithm, then this should work reasonably well to build computer games with. whether I do something like that through RPG Maker, or if I try to do basically pump these rules out through like Python and see if I could program out a very simple rudimentary game design. I'd be very curious to see if I could translate this over to a computer program. Okay. At a glance at the next page will show you the fate chart. Along the left side and the bottom, you will find the ranks that we discussed in the last few chapters. The ranks that help define your character and everything else in Mythic are compared on the fate chart to find the odds of answering the odds of the answer to your question being yes. On the right, you will find a range of odds in everyday language. Okay, so impossible, no way, very unlikely, unlikely, 50-50, somewhat likely, likely, very likely, near sure thing, a sure thing, has to be. Okay, so from there, above is the fate chart. All yes or no questions in the Mythic game are answered using the fate chart. This is handled by comparing an acting rank versus a difficulty rank for resisted questions, and comparing an odd value with the chaos factor for odd questions. Usually the acting rank is, this is really not the clearest way to phrase these things. Okay, so an example would be 2 characters are arm wrestling. To answer the question, does Sven win? Sven's strength rank is the acting rank, and his opponent's strength is the difficulty rank in this resisted question. Sven's strength is high, while his opponent is exceptional, giving Sven a 35% chance of a yes answer. If Sven's player rolls a 7 or less, he has scored an exceptional yes. If he rolls an 88 or more, it becomes an exceptional no. Okay, another example. Susan is exploring a creepy old house. She just heard a suspicious noise and is checking it out. Coming to the end of a corridor where she finds a door, is it locked? To answer this odd question, the player decides the probability of it being locked as unlikely, with a chaos factor of 8. More on chaos later. This gives her odds of 75% chance that the door is locked. Super Dude is attempting to stop a speeding train before it collides with a busload of school children. He has a strength rank of Superhuman 4. The players decide the difficulty of stopping the train is Superhuman 3. Since Superhuman 4 is 2 ranks off the chart, they can add 40% to the success chance. However, Superhuman 3 is also off the charts by 1 rank, subtracting 20% from the odds. This gives Super Dude a total chance of a yes of 70%. That's a very convoluted way of just deciding whether or not something is likely before you attempt it. Okay, so resisting questions. Activating hidden abilities and attributes. Okay, yeah, fate chart, yeah. I want to see story generation. Do you have options for that or no? Task resolution, that's pretty straightforward. That we just sort of saw all that. Okay, build a better world. This brings us to an important point. Once you've made a resolution chart, save it. If your character continues on with further adventures in the same game world, the resolution chart from previous adventures will still be useful. You will generate more resolution charts as the character explores the game world, helping in its evolution. Unskilled tasks. No, that was not where I thought we were going. Combat. No. Did I hit? No. Okay, so weapons, damage. No, it's still weapons based. Combat examples. I'm less really into worrying at all about combat, and more the logic is poor at one thing, coming up with surprises. Taking this into account, Mythic builds random events into the adventures, so everything doesn't make too much sense. An adventure that is guided by players' questions and expectations, randomness will add extra dimension to the action, spinning plot twists you may never have thought of before. Random events can occur at 2 times during a Mythic adventure: when a scene is first generated, and when a question is asked on the fate chart. NPC actions, move toward a thread. Threads are the goals that player characters are going after. Move away from a thread, player character, NPC negative or positive. Ambiguous events. Event meaning: attainment, starting, neglecting, fight, recruit. Okay, so event meaning action. There's a list of 100 words that are usually stop, lie, return, extravagance, trick, arrive, recruit, triumph, violate, and then event meaning subject, tension, friendship, project, wounds, liberty, weather, scenes. Mythic gameplay is visualized like a movie, with an adventure session broken into scenes, just like in a movie. A scene takes place at a certain location, involving certain characters, and covers a certain segment of action. Usually, unimportant stuff is left out of a scene, and only the good stuff gets shown. When the action is over and the characters are ready to move on, the scene ends and we proceed to the next scene. Mythic works the same way. A scene setting is envisioned. The characters resolve conflict within the scene, then it wraps up and everybody moves on. A scene is a discrete unit of time within an adventure, but it can be of any length. Okay. For example, Scene 1. A platoon of Space Marines lands on a distant world on a rescue mission to find a lost ship and its crew. They begin searching the barren landscape for signs of the crashed ship. They find evidence of life where there shouldn't have been any. Following up on this evidence, the Marines make their way to a range of rocky mountains where they have their first run-in with a race of aliens composed of organic metal. Scene 4. The Marines decide there may be a connection between the aliens and the lost ship. They track the aliens to the main cave and learn They live underground. Scene 5, Marines venture underground, beating back marauding aliens along the way. So landing on a distant world on a rescue mission is scene 1. They begin searching, scene 2. Following up on evidence they found in their search, the Marines make their way to a range of mountains, scene 3. Scene 4, decide there may be connection between the aliens. Yeah, all right, so cinematic is different from that in some way. Players may also choose to go cinematic. Here you can play scenes out of linear order or play scenes where the player characters are not even present. In cinematic play, the scenes follow an order of interest, not time. So an example of this is scene 1. This is a setup scene where we see the crew of the soon-to-be lost ship orbiting an alien world when suddenly alarms start blaring. Through a series of fate questions, the player determines that the ship inexplicably malfunctions and begins to plummet to the rocky surface below. Our platoon of players, scene 2, character Marines set out to rescue mission and find out what happened. 3, they begin their search and find evidence of life on the planet. 4, a short scene with a lone non-player character wandering off from the main platoon. He is examining a strange flower when a shadow falls over him. His blood-curdling scream and death at the hands of the alien monster is the first sign that they are not alone. Scene 5, the Marines attack the aliens, track the aliens to their cave, ... Okay, so that's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm going to take a look at the D&D alteration that led us to this, where they talk about variants of a simplified version of this, and see sort of what difference there are. And I'll come back and talk about it, but I do want to kind of explore the possibility of playing this game a little bit one-person game style and see what kind of things I can do with it. It gives me the option to play test some of my ideas and also sort of tell a story. And at the same time, I want to see if I can figure out some ways to do the player participation on the side. So I will look into that. I'm sorry if this seemed a little rambly tonight. I got on here kind of late. I did a double shift. I'm a little tired, so I'm not completely all here. But hopefully it was something at least moderately interesting. And it sounds like with some tweaks, I might be able to make a rudimentary computer game that lets you do some of this stuff. All right, so I will say good night here. Take care. And I will catch you tomorrow. Maybe. They shouldn't give me a double shift again tomorrow, so I should be able to do tomorrow, all right. I just can't do any more of these double shifts on a rapid fire week like this. I'm just not up for it. Too much going on.